Before we begin this episode, I have some bad news to share with our Chop Shop family. On Sunday, January 14th, longtime Cinema Chop Shop co-host Chelsea was found dead from an apparent suicide by hanging at her residence outside Charlotte, North Carolina. She is survived by her mother Shirley and her son Holden. This tragic loss only further proves we never know the inner struggles our friends and family face, despite what we may see on the outside. Listener, if you find yourself in a dark place, please know that you have friends and family who want to help, no matter how big or small your troubles may seem. Please, reach out. If you experience thoughts of suicide, it is my sincere plea that you contact the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988 in the United States or visit 988lifeline.org. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to Cinema Chop Shop. Watch, chop, retrofit.
So Todd and Joey, you guys are both like English language dudes, right? Like lit dudes. Well, we do. Sometimes better than others, as you'll note from the 300th episode. Are there any phrases or terms that are misused that just irk you?
I don't like for all intensive purposes.
Intensive
for
purposes
whatever reason,
is very,
that
very
annoys
frustrating.
The shit out of me, and I hear it a lot.
One of mine is
Mute point, but that one kind of makes sense because it's
miles
kind of
per hour. Miles per hour.
Per hour?
Yeah, miles per hour. And
I don't
also
think I've ever heard that.
over exaggerate. This isn't your grammar's podcast.
Irregardless of all of that.
This is Cinema Chop Shop. Welcome to the 301st episode.
It's a whole new world.
We're old folks now. Well, we were to begin with, but now the podcast is old. But we're glad that you're joining us tonight. We have our usual band of merry idiots.
A motley crew.
We have Travisito,
Yes, sir.
Joey Poole,
Hello.
and Todd.
Howdy.
And I'm Sean. And we are going to take on one of the best years for movies.
No, not one of. Don't qualify that motherfucker. It is the best year
I don't
in
know.
cinema.
What is your criteria for that? Because I got to say, I haven't really thought about a specific year, but I would definitely have to, for me personally, I would have to say that the 70s is the pinnacle
That's
of
a decade.
cinema.
This is
Much
one
like it's
year.
the pinnacle of rock and roll. And
So I absolutely agree with you. The 70s were an amazing decade for movies. However, as many amazing movies as came out in the 70s came out in one year, and that year was 1999.
Absolutely. And we have a theory as to why this is, right,
There is
Travis?
a theory. It's a working theory. It might be a conspiracy theory. My thinking is that everybody in the world was freaked out about Y2K.
Pre-millennium tension.
Yes.
The world was going to end.
Not just pre-millennium tension, but the literal Y2K computer bug. That was a very real threat, at least for the first 2/3 of the year of 1999. And so we've got these people who are in positions to make very important financial decisions about what to greenlight. And they're like, what?
Empty the bag.
Get it all out there, blow your load. We're going to make the best shit, and it's going to be amazing. And then if the world's over, we did our jobs. Thoughts?
I think that you're onto something with that. Plus, also, at the end of the century, we were facing uncertainty and the future. And so you had a lot of creative types who were really inspired and kind of feeling that zeitgeist of what was going on. And I think as a result, a lot of the things that were written and produced in the year 1999 reflect that. And as a result, we have some really cool movies.
It was the only time in the history of cinema where a century had changed and a millennium had changed in
Yes.
terms of chronology. All right, so how are we going to confront this beast of
Okay,
a...
so this is what we're doing. It's going to be very similar to our baseball movies episode. We all kind of chipped in and made recommendations of movies that we would like to see. And the idea was to come up with a bracket of 16 films. So with the exception of one or two, I think everyone's suggestions made the list. In order to remain fair, we took the field of 16 and used the overall Rotten Tomatoes score to seed the movies.
Now, when you say overall, are you talking about the critical score or the audience?
I'm looking at the
tomato meter.
tomato meter,
Okay, so that's critical
the
score.
critical score.
Okay.
So, again, this is
It
just out of
made-
fairness.
And it made for some brutal first.
Oh,
two,
this is-
two in particular for me are just.
Oh, this is a bloodbath.
Very difficult.
Yeah, there are
Yeah.
some tough matchups. But again, to be fair, that's just how we did it. We're going to jump into the first round. We're going to run down each of the films and kind of talk about the synopsis for each and any other input that you guys want to throw into the mix to state your argument if you feel strongly one way or the other about said film. So the first movie, which was one that I didn't even think of when we were pitching movies, but it's the top of the list, 100% Rotten Tomatoes, Toy Story 2.
100% undeserved.
Well, this is the sequel to the beloved Toy Story. This one was directed by John Lasseter. Woody, played by Tom Hanks, or voiced rather, is stolen from his home by a toy dealer, Al McGuigan, voiced by Wayne Knight, leaving Buzz Lightyear, played by Tim Allen, and the rest of the gang to try to rescue him. But when Woody discovers he's actually a valuable collectible from a once popular television show called Woody's Roundup and is reunited with his horse Bullseye, Jessie, the yodeling cowgirl, played by Joan Cusack, and his faithful sidekick, Stinky Pete the Prospector, played by the timeless Kelsey Grammer,
Yes.
he doesn't want to leave.
Okay. So can I point out one glaring fact?
Sure.
This is the only sequel out of 16 movies that made the cut.
Right. And to its credit, this is where the lore building of Toy Story kind of begins to take place. We get past the initial setup of these toys are real and alive unless humans are present, blah, blah, blah. And then we start to get into some of the things that they investigate with the feelings of loss and the feelings of growing up and nostalgia and things like that. So it was a charming film.
A
Thoughts from the
surprise
panel,
number
yeah.
one seed, I think.
Because it's by Rotten Tomatoes scores, and it's
yeah.
the only one with a 100%.
So kind of a shocking one seed, and then the 16 seed here is a live one.
Yep.
You know, this is not a play-in team from the Southwest Prairie League Conference champions back into the tournament. This is a film in existence.
Yes.
David Cronenberg's that is, I think, a live 16 seed here.
Live dog.
With
Yes.
a real shot at winning. We did the baseball episode. We had Bull Durham versus fucking Artie Lang's beer league. And
Yeah.
it was a blowout. It was over by
Sure.
halftime.
That was a traditional 1 versus 16.
This
This
one.
is not.
This one could go either way.
You guys are giving me FOMO. Keep talking about this baseball episode I wasn't on. So I did want to say that I just watched Existence.
Me too.
Yesterday for
Really?
the first time.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm dying to know what you guys think about it then.
I
because-
thought in classic Cronenberg style, it was real gross.
Yeah.
And then it kind of won me over with the meta game within your brain aspect of it.
It is indicative of its time.
Came
Yes,
out like
that
the
was-
week
yeah.
after The Matrix.
The spelling of the film is lowercase e, capital X,
Yes.
ISTEN, capital Z.
So 1999.
So rated at 74% on Rotten Tomatoes. Video game designer Allegra Geller, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh,
Still hot.
has created a virtual reality game called Existence. After a crazed fan attempts to kill her, Allegra goes on the run with Ted, played by Jude Law, a young businessman who falls into the role of bodyguard.
Super young Jude Law.
In an attempt to save her game, Allegra implants into Ted's body the video game pod that carries a damaged copy of Existence. Allegra and Ted engage in a series of experiences that blur the lines between fantasy and reality. Now, of course, this film comes complete with all of your typical Cronenberg body horror.
And the penetration. Penetration is a theme throughout.
The game port is basically a butthole in your back.
Yes.
Yep.
If I remember right.
It
so
is.
gross.
And the
They have to lube it up.
And the guns that they use are made from like reptile parts.
Yes.
And
yes.
with moss all over them.
Yeah, they're organic to slip in under.
super
metal.
weird.
And the console itself is an organism.
Yes.
Yeah. It looks like
which is
some sort of
interesting.
weird mutant vagina that's just pulsating.
Yeah, exactly. But apparently the user, though, forms an attachment to it like you would a dog or something, because we see Allegra getting upset when she thinks it's in danger.
You imprint on your game pod.
Right.
Like Travis, I watched it for the first time this week. Like any kind of one of these, reality hopping mindfuck movies, it's kind of a Rubik's Cube.
Yes.
For better or for worse. I probably should have sat down and watched it rather than doing it while I was doing laundry and those kind of things. So
I
maybe
stand while I
my
watch
experience
movies.
of the movie is somewhat skewed for that. I have a feeling that I'm going to be the only dissenting voice here to vote for the number 1 seed.
All right. So Joey's in for Toy Story 2. Todd, this was one of your recommendations.
Yes. I have always thought this was a pretty underrated in Cronenberg's filmography. It's not one of the first ones that gets mentioned in his movies.
I didn't even know it exists.
Yeah, right. And I wouldn't claim that it's his best film, but I do think it's. You mentioned it really captures the '90s zeitgeist. There are a lot of sci-fi movies in that decade that came out that were grappling with the burgeoning technology, with the internet and cyberspace, video game technology, which this one goes in as well, virtual technology. Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of it. There's a lot of the hallmarks of Cronenberg in there. I like the mind fuck of what's going on with this. There's he also has some customary satire in there, like the spelling of existence. I think is definitely him making fun of that type of thing in corporate slang.
Well, the font was the same as the X-Files font.
Right.
All right, Todd.
Toy Story 2, I do think is one of the better Toy Stories, having dived into those a few years back. I'm going to have to go with Existenz, though, and that might
Okay.
just be a personal thing. But
I'm also going with Existenz for the reasons I mentioned already. And the only reason I would hesitate is because they called it a trout farm, but those weren't trout.
I wanted to say too. For me, this one was hard because Toy Story 2 is it's arguably more of a commodity than a piece of film art, whereas Existence is not a commodity. It's not a commercial.
It is a
feature.
piece of art.
It is a piece. It's very much a piece of film art,
But it's a gross piece of art.
and it's one that's to me is a little flawed as well.
I am squarely on the fence with these two things. I love David Cronenberg. I think that Existence was
Set the tone.
it set the tone. It spoke a bit ahead of its time in terms of how we have become, and a generation has become addicted to video games in a way that's completely different.
Not me.
Completely different from when people our age grew up with video games.
That Cronenberg shit ain't gonna get me.
Yeah, right, Morty? I just thought it was an interesting peering into the future kind of thing.
Yes.
You've got these guys that are living, breathing, existing, no pun intended, video games through Twitch, through what they actually play, through augmented reality, through VR. Toy Story 2, as you said, Joey, pretty flawless. However, it is part of the big corporate machine, and the revolutionary inside me says that I've got to pull for Cronenberg.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call the big NCAA first round upset in favor of Existence over Toy Story 2.
Fuck Toy Story 2.
And I will say this, to our show's idiom, it is a sequel.
Yep.
If you had asked me without researching it what happened in Toy Story 2, I could not have told you.
Not at all.
Next up, we have a movie that you might have heard of called The Matrix.
Uh-huh.
That is the number 9 seed with 83%.
So we're doing the
Rotten
left side
Tomatoes.
first?
Yep, we're going to do
Okay.
the whole left side bracket. At the time, directed by the Wachowski brothers. Now
Yep.
they're the Wachowski sisters.
Whoa,
Wait,
both
are
of them are
siblings?
trans?
I thought they were
one of them-
siblings now.
Siblings.
Yeah, one's a dude, one's a girl.
Okay.
No, one's Lana and one's Lily.
Whoa.
Damn.
I didn't realize that they both were trans.
Yeah.
I thought that
It happened in sequence. It was like one, then the other.
Actually, when they were male, it was just a simulation.
apparently the movie itself on some level meant as an allegory for their trans experience somehow.
Yeah, that
I don't know how
I think
that
that's
really works,
retconning though.
but,
I think
yeah.
they said that after the fact. No need to rehash the plot of this in the interest of time. It's such a cultural touchstone at this
Everybody
point.
knows The Matrix.
Everyone knows The Matrix. At the time it came out, I remember there being a lot of eye rolling, a lot of groaning about Keanu Reeves, terrible actor.
It was very wooden.
And nobody really cared about it when it came out. Once it hit video aftermarket,
Blew up.
then people were like, no, you need to see this. You've got to watch this movie. This movie's something else. Awesome soundtrack. Some really cool layered reality kind of things going on. And
Amazing special effects. The best special effects since Terminator 2.
agreed with you there. And as a cultural touchstone, those special effects are still emulated, imitated, parodied, what have you. Todd, you're being awfully quiet about Matrix.
I may be the dissenting voice on The Matrix.
I
I'm
figured
not
because
a-
your next
not a-
one is the next one up is going to be your recommendation for the list. It's going head to head with the number 8 seed at 84%. Ghost Dog, Way of the Samurai.
Ghost Dog! Way of the Samurai with
Forrest
Forrest
Whitaker.
Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker.
Directed by Jim Jarmusch, which I did not know.
I did not know that either. That's
at
amazing.
the time.
Probably the only I don't like Jarmusch as a general rule. I find his '90s slacker aesthetic really, really limiting.
I run
kinda
hot and
grating.
cold on him.
But
It's either
this
I
one
like it
is
or I don't
my
like it.
favorite of his movies. Probably the
Yep.
only one that I love.
So how do we get past the cultural appropriation of a black samurai?
I don't think we do. I mean, he's
Just accept
studied
it.
in that, you know. I mean,
Okay.
cultural appropriation was nothing new. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that's been going on.
Also,
since
I think
Mace
it's
Rooney
okay
played
if
an
one
Asian
minority
character.
appropriates another minority.
But what
maybe?
about
I think it's-
Keanu Reeves in the last, or Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai, or Keanu Reeves in 47 Ronin?
Well, those are all stories about
White
dudes living in
Exactly.
a
Okay.
different culture. So they're not. I don't know.
For anyone who may not have seen this film at the time, Ghost Dog is a contract killer, a master of his trade who can whirl a gun at warp speed and moves through the world like a phantom. Stealthy and evanescent, that's a 90s word. In the spirit of the samurai, he has pledged his loyalty to a small-time mobster named Louis, played by John Torney, who saved his life many years before. I have not seen this movie since it originally came out.
I think I've seen it twice.
It was
I've-
so
on
fucking cool.
VHS.
Such a cool movie. And it's unfortunate that we've got two action flicks going head to head.
Well, I think that it was a commercial failure,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
I think that not a lot of people saw it in the theater. I think it's gotten some critical and cult following acclaim. But man, this is...
All right.
I haven't even thought about this movie in years.
You've got to dodge bullets, Matrix style.
No, I'm going Ghost Dog.
You're going Ghost
Yeah.
Dog.
Oh,
You're
okay.
going Ghost Dog?
I'm going Ghost Dog.
I'm going Ghost Dog as well. I'm not a fan of the
Holy shit.
Matrix. To me, the Matrix
Yeah,
is like that stoner conspiracy theorist that you went to
Nice.
high school with. It's his favorite movie. It's a good movie. It's not as heady a movie as
Yeah.
many people seem to think it is.
Yeah,
It's not the Messiah.
It's definitely.
I like that.
I put it in the same category with Inception as a, it's this philosophical puzzle box that's kind of like.
I like
at the end.
Inception better than The Matrix.
I think
Probably,
Ghost Dog
I do
has-
too, but
For me, Ghost Dog has a crude cachet since it came out. The Matrix's cachet has kind of eroded.
Then we're just going to
Indeed.
jump. We're going to jump straight into the next part.
What
of the
was your
bracket.
vote going to be, though?
I was going to say The Matrix just because of its staying power, just because of its impact and its resonating impact today.
Right.
However, I do love Ghost Dog. I think it was
Yeah.
so cool.
I need to
And-
rewatch it.
Yeah. All right, moving on. We are looking at a controversial film. It was the best picture according to the Oscars. It was also the best director, best actor. That didn't age well. And best screenplay. We're talking about American Beauty. 87%, directed by Sam Mendes.
Pretty early Sam Mendes movie.
Yeah.
He went on to do
Yeah.
a lot of things.
A telesales operative becomes disillusioned with his existence and begins to hunger for fresh excitement in his life. That's gross. And he experiences a new awakening of the senses. His wife and daughter also undergo changes that seriously affect their family. blah blah blah. I kind of liked this movie when it came out. Travis, you raised an interesting point about should we even include it for various reasons.
There's some controversy about it. Obviously, Kevin Spacey's like been revealed to be kind of a shady dude,
Well, we got another shady dude coming up in the second half of the bracket.
and
Yes.
the movie itself was very of its time. Looking back, it's fun to make fun of, like the bag, the bag,
Oh God,
the
so
plastic
dorky.
bag,
Yeah.
or the drive-through scene with.
Now I do like the drive-through scene
yeah.
where Annette Bening shows up with her realtor friend and they're like carrying on and he's taking their order.
Yes.
That was probably my favorite part of the film. But of course we've got some problematic issues of him fucking a teenager.
Yeah, and then also
Oh, he doesn't though, because he's into her,
Right.
and then when they start making out on the couch, and she reveals that all of her sexual bravado was just bravado,
that she's a
actually
virgin.
Yeah.
he stops, and then they have like a moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and then
That
there's
doesn't mean you
also
have to like it, but that is.
There's also the scene with Sheriff July Johnson from Lonesome Dove, where he's like the hardcore military dad.
So Chris Cooper.
Yeah, Chris Cooper, and he turns out to be like a closeted homosexual.
Yep. And
with a
then
Nazi fetish.
Yes.
and then Thora Birch showing off her boobits.
Yes.
Which is, you talk about inappropriate, you've got a lot of, based on according to their characters, underage nudity in this
Yes.
movie. So
Yeah.
it's
I like American Beauty, and I would say as far as the controversial elements, the question to me with something like that is, does it seem like the filmmaker is approving of that stuff? And I don't think that he is. I don't think that he's
You have to
approving
separate
of,
the art from the artist.
Correct. I don't think that he's approving of Kevin Spacey lusting after a teenage girl.
He's merely making the comment that that sort of situation exists.
Right, exactly. Now, there are some kind of precious moments like, oh, look at the beautiful, trash plastic bag in
Yeah.
the wind. Like, come on. All
I
right,
mean, I
that
thought
doesn't age
shit was
well.
deep in 1999.
Right,
Yeah,
but,
I
uh,
also really, really appreciated the fact that Wes Bentley's character was also a high-end drug dealer who referred to his buyers as clients, and he only smoked the best shit.
Yeah.
Which is, if you really lived in 1999, there was mostly just dirt weed going around,
Right.
just as a.
all right. Moving on to its competitor, we're looking at an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's too low.
Office Space, directed
Yes.
by Mike Judge.
Based on a short film by him from 1992.
Corporate drone Peter Gibbons, played by Ron Livingston, hates his soul-killing job at software company Initech. While undergoing hypnotherapy, Peter is left in a blissful state when his therapist dies in the middle of the session. He refuses to work overtime, plays games at his desk, and unintentionally charms two consultants into putting him into management on the fast track. When Peter's friends learn they're about to be downsized, they hatch a revenge plot against the company inspired by Superman 3.
Yes. All right, so we got to talk about the cast.
Well,
We got
go
Ron
ahead.
Livingston as the main character. We've got Jennifer Aniston in like one of her first movie roles outside of Friends.
She was
right?
still doing Friends at the time, yeah.
We've got Ajay Naidu,
Not going to work here anymore.
Not going to work here. Yeah.
David Herman from Mad TV
Yep,
as Michael Bolton.
yep.
We've got Gary Cole as
Peter, we're going to need you to come in. You got
What
Steve-
about
I don't wanna
those
just
people?
Yeah,
report.
So bad. Every
You
time
got,
I
you
see
got
it-
Stephen Root,
Stephen Root. Have you seen my stapler?
the man of a
Yep.
thousand faces.
John C. McGinley.
Yes.
Dr. Cox as one of the
I
two
just cherish his
consultants.
whole entire discography talking about Michael Bolton.
And then Diedrich Bader.
And you got one more beyond that. You got the great character actor Richard Reel. The jump to conclusions, Matt.
Yes. Okay, so you said that this movie was also controversial. Who's controversial?
No, I'm talking about something later.
Oh,
Later.
okay. I was
Second
like,
half.
What
Second
did
half.
Mike Judge do?
No. Second half.
Besides King of the Hill.
So let's cut to the chase here. Is anybody voting for American Beauty? I'm getting the feeling that this might be another
No.
upset.
Let's save our comments for on Office Space for the second round because I think it's going through.
It's
Yes?
going through for me.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
going through.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Okay.
Yeah, Office Space over
I've got
American
lots to
Beauty.
say about Office Space.
Absolutely.
Especially about Face.
And that was the,
that was my suggestion, by the way.
Oh.
Office Space.
Are you going to show your O face? Yeah.
Face.
That's the traditional 12-5 upset too. There's
Yeah.
always a 12-5 upset.
Yep.
at the
I
end of
didn't know that.
Yep.
Man, you guys know a lot about sports.
All right, we're moving on to the bottom of the bracket, and then we all get to go pee. So let's keep it going.
I already peed.
Number 13. I can see it. Number 13, Green Mile. The Green Mile. From
Such a good movie.
It's a 79%. Directed by Frank Darabont. Written by Stephen King. Or based on a story by Stephen King. Paul Edgecombe, played by Tom Hanks, walked the mile with a variety of cons. He had never encountered someone like John Coffey, played by Michael Clark Duncan, a massive black man convicted of brutally killing a pair of young sisters. Coffey had the size and strength to kill anyone, but not the demeanor. Beyond his simple, naive nature and deadly fear of the dark, Coffey seemed to possess a prodigious supernatural gift. Paul began to question whether Coffey was truly guilty of murdering the two girls.
Frank Darabont is one of the only directors who has managed to adapt a Stephen King book to film to success. He also did Shawshank Redemption.
And The Mist, which I think is very underrated.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a utterly.
I already know
unpopular
the liberal professor argument Joey's
opinion
going to make.
Hated it. To make another.
Why
90s
don't you like
reference.
it?
Man, this movie is a bucket of custard, man. It is maudlin, and it has the most egregious, overuse of the magical Negro.
I knew you were going to use that phrase.
Ever been
I knew it.
filmed.
So
And
when
I knew you were going to use it.
brought that up.
I think you're being cliche, Joey.
It's the kind of movie that old white people love to watch when Fox News is talking about something boring. I don't like this movie at all. I actively hate this movie. And
Do you like it better or worse than Green Book?
I have not yet seen the Green Book.
I like Green
but I
Book
like the
better
Green
than
Book
this.
much better, I'm sure.
You're sure?
You're sure, but I haven't seen it.
I'm sure.
I have my issues with Green Book, and I still like Green Book.
All
better
right.
than this.
I can see the magical Negro trope argument, which I knew you were going to bring up.
The Blind
However,
Side.
my only concern with that is how the Fox News. Yes, it does make the Fox News crowd feel like they're not actually racist because they actually like this character. However, I would argue
to
that
kill a Mockingbird effect.
well, yes, but I would argue though that how the audience responds is not the responsibility
That's fair.
of the filmmaker. And as a movie, as a pure entertainment, let's say. I think it works very well. And that's Stephen King's whole thing. He's not trying to be James Joyce. He's an entertainment guy. And I think this movie works on that score.
Fucking Todd's brain still works. It's amazing.
All right, so we're going head to head with a film that has a 90%. It's our number 4 seed. It's Galaxy Quest.
Yeah. Also my suggestion.
Directed by Dean Parisot.
Yes.
The stars of a 1970s sci-fi show, now scraping a living through reruns and sci-fi conventions, are beamed aboard an alien spacecraft, believing the cast's heroic on-screen dramas are historical documents of real-life adventures. The band of aliens turn to the ailing celebrities for help in their quest to overcome the oppressive regime in the solar system.
You have the exact same synopsis.
It's
that
called
I have.
Wikipedia.
Yes. Starring Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, the late great Alan Rickman, Tony Shalhoub, and we get a young Rainn Wilson in there too.
You're leaving out two very important
Tell
ones.
me.
Sam Rockwell
Yes.
and Justin Long.
Justin Long, thank you.
Future Scream King. As it were.
Yes, he is a Scream King.
Yes.
I'll speak to this movie.
Yes, please.
It was so indicative of the Star Trek culture at the time when it came out. The sci-fi Comic-Con culture. It did
The Trekker.
It did that great job of balancing poking fun yet celebrating at the same time, much like the movie Theater Camp that I talked about from last year in our best of.
Also, like that, unlike Spaceballs, it satirizes not just the show itself and similar stuff, but also the phenomenon of the show itself.
Precisely.
Very much so. Good point.
And it plays into the plot of the show itself, which I think is kind of cool. Beyond that, the film itself has enjoyed a bit of a renaissance. The people
Well, you
are-
know they made a show, right? They made a TV
Yeah.
show based on a movie based on a TV show.
But there is actually a new generation of people who have discovered this show
Mm-hmm.
online, and now there's a new discussion about how this show is like, holy shit, that's whatever his Snape from Harry
Yes.
Potter. You've got a lot of young viewers who are discovering the show for the first time.
Wait
this
till
movie.
they see Dude, Where's My Car?
So I think it's cool. I like this film. I thought it was refreshing, and it is kind of an outlier when you look at the films that we're talking about today. It's one of those where it's just like, who thought of this? It was clever.
I'm going to abstain because this was a movie that I planned to watch today, and I ended up spending a few hours at the car shop instead. So
you
I
never
don't think
saw
that-
Galaxy Quest?
I only watched a YouTube highlight reel, and I don't feel like it would be fair.
Oh,
for
my.
me.
So Todd's done for the night. He's going to go ahead
He
and
is
leave.
kicked from the panel.
No, but this makes it easy because the three of you
Yeah,
can
okay.
decide
There's
this.
a couple on the list that I haven't seen
I'll
either,
vote
so I'll do the
Galaxy
same thing.
Quest.
Galaxy Quest.
All right, so Galaxy Quest is in.
All right.
We're going to take a pee break, and we're going to take on the second half of the bracket, but
Sounds
not
good.
before we all say,
Let's all go to the
lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby and get ourselves
Some Captain Wafers and V8. That's what I was drinking and eating for breakfast in 1999.
Awesome.
Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack. We promise to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, your sweet tooth. So visit our refreshment center now. Let's go.
And we're back, and we are going to continue our bracket. But
My phone's telling me we're supposed to do a podcast.
let's do it. Anybody got any beer check-ins we want to talk about?
I'm just drinking the hazy little thing.
I brought a on theme beer. You may have heard of it. It's Guinness Draft.
How
and
so?
It's on theme because in 1999 I drank a lot of Irish car bombs.
Oh, okay. This is the perfect opportunity. Where were you in 1999? It could be the summer of 1999, the peak of movie season. It could be just where you were. So I'll start. I graduated high school in 1999, and I worked at a cotton mill that summer, Beacon Mills in Westminster, South Carolina. And I was saving money and preparing to move to Florence to attend Francis Marion University, right here in Florence, South Carolina, where I met all of you fine folks.
Nice.
I was between Clemson and Columbia. In grad school, I was working at Winn-Dixie.
Nice.
And
When those still existed.
Yeah.
I, like Travis, was also graduating from my little podunk country school of Green Sea Floyd's, going to...
I always forget
I worked-
that you went to Green Sea Floyd's.
I did. I worked that summer at the North Myrtle Beach Grand Prix, which is a go-kart place. Pretty fun
Sean and I
job.
both had hair on our nuts already.
My friends and I we would always get off at midnight, so we would sneak into the House of Blues that had like a little club night thing. And back then, they didn't have a very good system for policing
No.
people.
It was 1999.
You just asked someone who was of age to give you their bracelet when
Yeah.
they were walking out, and then you went in. And then I went to Clemson from there.
It's called a sneak in.
Exactly.
I was doing black ops for the government, so I can't talk about it. All right, moving on to the second half of the bracket. We've got our number 3 seed, a 92% rated movie, Election.
Election. Also, whose suggestion was this?
I don't know.
Probably mine.
Yeah, probably yours.
Yeah.
Directed by
good.
directed
this
by
movie.
Alexander Payne, who just recently directed The Holdovers.
Holdovers.
We don't really talk about Alexander Payne. His movies.
He's
have all
one.
been
No,
well
he's
done, but
he's one of my favorite directors.
this guy's filmography, man.
No, well,
Bob
he
Smith.
doesn't. He every
What do you
4
mean we
years,
don't
he's
talk
like the
about it?
yeah.
Well, the movies themselves have all been very well received, but like no one mentions.
He's not a star director.
exactly.
He's
yeah,
not. He's
but-
not
and he also
put up there in
he-
the upper
yeah.
echelon of our tours.
I mean, about
Well, and he
Schmidt,
takes 4 to 5
Sideways,
years
Nebraska.
between movies. Most of the time, he's like the Olympics. Every 4 years, he puts out a masterpiece.
All right, so Election. Jim McAllister, played by a skinnier version of Matthew Broderick, a well-liked high school government teacher, can't help but notice that successful student Tracy Flick, played by Reese Witherspoon, uses less than ethical tactics to get what she wants. When Tracy runs for school president, Jim feels that she will be a poor influence on the student body and convinces Paul, a dim-witted but popular student athlete, to run against Tracy. When she becomes aware of Jim's secret involvement in the race, a bitter feud is sparked.
It's kind of funny that you call Jim McAllister a skinnier Matthew Broderick, because Jim McAllister was supposed to have been a fatter Ferris Bueller.
Yep.
Wait, what do you mean by that? Is there a real person? Is this based on real events?
No. I just mean Matthew Broderick was fatter than he was playing Ferris Bueller.
It's the
And they kinda
natural
made a thing,
progression.
he had a little gut. They showed him trying to
Yeah.
run and work off the belly fat. Now he's fatter still. I just thought it was funny that
Interesting.
that Sean made a point to call him a skinnier Matthew Broderick. But
I like this movie. I thought it was a really cool one.
It's so good.
Yeah,
I love
it's
this movie.
clever.
I have ever since I saw it. I got the Criterion Blu-ray as soon as it came out. It's just so fucking funny.
Yep.
Dry humor, but really good. The performances are outstanding. I mean, Broderick is great. Reese Witherspoon, of course, this was probably her coming out role, unless you count
No, Man in the Moon.
Yeah.
I agree with everything that y'all have said, gushing about this movie. I agree with it, but it's up against a buzzsaw.
This is one of the fucking brutal matchups. It's going head to head with a 79% rated
I didn't look at the second part of
Fight Club, directed by David Fincher. A depressed man, Edward Norton, suffering from insomnia, meets a strange soap salesman named Tyler Durden, played by Brad Pitt.
The soap
And
is
soon
made of
finds
human
himself
fat.
living in his squalid house after his perfect apartment is destroyed. The two bored men form an underground club with strict rules and fight other men who are fed up with their mundane lives. Their perfect partnership frays when Marla, played by Helena Bonham Carter, a fellow support group crasher, attracts Tyler's attention.
And you're glossing over the support group Crasher, because that's kind of the beginning of what we know about these two characters, Edward Norton and Helena Bonham Carter, is that they need to feel something.
I think
And
that-
they go to these support groups in order to cry, in order to emote.
All right, let's take a quick poll of the group to see, is there a contest here? This is a brutal matchup. I want to know what everyone's take is, and then we can get into greater detail.
I got to go
Okay.
Fight Club over Election, even though I love Election.
I struggle with this one. Ultimately, they're both great. They're both great. They both could win this tournament from a different seed. I'm going with Fight Club as well. Here's why. Ultimately, I decided that this is a movie that has been grossly misinterpreted by like alt-right toxic masculinity
Yep.
bros.
All right.
And at first, I was like, that's a red flag. But then, actually, it's the strength of the movie because it's so fucking rich that it's open for so many interpretations, and it's not didactic, and it's not
It's
preachy.
almost a parody of that mindset.
And this movie has had an indelible effect on our society. I think you could trace a direct line from this movie to the Occupy Wall Street, movement, to all this conspiracy theory stuff. And it's a fucking good movie, and I'm voting. Fight
I'm
Club.
afraid that
I sorry, real quick, I want to interject. Going back to Election, if we hadn't had Election, we wouldn't have Mean Girls, and we wouldn't have Abbott Elementary.
Oh, I agree.
I probably would have seeded these 1 and 2 if I were seeding it myself.
100%.
honestly.
100%. We said at the outset, this is a brutal bracket.
I like Fight Club, but I still prefer Election by about 5 points. I don't even think it's a buzzer beater. And I think the reason why is the rewatchability. The twist in Fight Club, I do think it's one of those movies that it does lose a little something. I'm not saying it loses everything, Joey. I see you shaking your head. I'm sorry, but when you know the twist, it does, like The Sixth Sense or one of those movies, it does lose a little something from its power.
Well, we'll
Whereas when you can rewatch Election,
It's kind of interesting
It's not
that
the
Matthew
same thing.
Broderick was in Election, and the scenario, the dynamic in Fight Club has been compared to the fan theory
Ferris Bueller
that
and Cameron.
in Ferris
yeah.
Bueller
and that was
Cameron.
mine, remember? And yeah.
Todd, completely well-founded in what you said about Election. It's a great film. I'm going to have to side with Fight Club. And it kills me to do so. Like I said, this is a
In the
bloodbath.
room of the wrong.
This is
Sorry,
a
just
blood.
kidding.
All right, so Todd is officially ejected from the
All right, so we get to talk about Fight Club later. I'll save one other little fact for it for
plenty.
the next round.
All right, so we're moving on. We're going up against the number 11 seed, an 80% rated film, The Virgin Suicides by Sofia Coppola.
Her first film, right?
In an ordinary suburban house on a lovely tree-lined street in the middle of 1970s America lived the 5 beautiful, dreamy Lisbon sisters, whose doomed fates indelibly marked the neighborhood boys who to this day continue to obsess over them. A story of love and repression, fantasy and terror, sex and death, memory and longing. It is, at its core, a mystery story, a heart-rending investigation into the impenetrable, life-altering secrets of American adolescence.
Impenetrable, because they're virgins.
Yes, starring Kirsten Dunst and Josh Hartnett.
Yeah. Was his hair messy yet?
I don't know. The thing I remember most from this movie was, and this was just kind of an endearing, sweet innocence kind of thing, where they were communicating with the records that they were playing.
Or loss of innocence?
Yeah, absolutely. I like that aspect of it. However, I think that 80% may be a little high on that on this movie. I don't know, Todd. You're kind of in a
I
maybe
like
disagree.
I like the movie because one thing I really always have liked about the movie is that it's very nostalgic, even though it's ultimately a profoundly sad film, and it's sad throughout it. And I like how Sofia Coppola managed that tone. There's a dreamy quality to it that I really like, even though it's not it's a realistic movie, but there's a dreaminess to it that I really think that she captured very well.
I agree with you there. I really do like that Leave It to Beaver kind of aesthetic that they have with some really dark shit going on. That is kind of a conflicting
Tonally.
Tones, butting heads.
So I think that these guys, these dudes who are reflecting back on these sisters are only so nostalgic because they think they're exotic. They think they're from Portugal because their last name is Lisbon.
Lisbon. Joey.
This is one of those movies that, and there's a couple like this, where the soundtrack, the score actually, which is done by Air, is like burned into my memory. Because
And how do you mean done by Air?
the band, the French electronic band Air?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I inherited the CD of that score from an ex-girlfriend, and it was like the soundtrack for writing or grading or whatever that kind of thing. for
Background
years and
music.
years.
Yeah.
So I'm really intimately familiar with the soundtrack. The movie itself I've seen a couple of times, not very recently, but in my memory it's very hazy.
Okay.
And sort of not literally hazy, but like there's this like y'all said this like ethereal quality to it.
Like,
Yes.
are you talking about
Yeah,
the
that's what-
cinematography or
No, just the storytelling
Subject,
somehow.
yes, okay.
And I
Yeah.
think it's about how like women don't exist as people to men. They exist a lot also often as like this enigma or this like
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
something
so.
to be figured out. And I think it does very well at
And
that.
the ending fits in with that interpretation as
Yeah.
God
well.
damn it, you guys! You're so poignant.
And so this is one of those that I probably should have rewatched. I haven't seen it in going on 2 decades now, probably. But I'm just going to say this out loud. It's going to destroy the movie that it's up against.
All right.
Right?
Speaking of, we're
Right.
going head to head with the higher seed, number 6 in the bracket. It's an 86% rated film, The Sixth Sense.
I see dead people.
The big debut of M. Night Shyamalan.
Shamalama Ding Dong.
Young Cole Sear, played by Haley Joel Osment, is haunted by a dark secret. He is visited by
He's
ghosts.
haunted by the secret that he's going to get big and fat.
Cole is frightened by visitations from those with unresolved problems who appear from the shadows. He is too afraid to tell anyone about his anguish except child psychologist Dr. Malcolm Crowe, played by Bruce Willis. As Dr. Crowe tries to uncover the truth about Cole's supernatural abilities, the consequences for client and therapist are a jolt that awakens them both to something unexplainable. Also starring Toni Collette as the mother.
Yes.
And Mark Wahlberg's in this movie.
Yeah, barely. Toni Collette's one of the bright spots in this movie.
Agreed.
So, just full disclosure, I'm doing something I have never done on this podcast before. I've never sat.
Put your dick away, Joey.
Jesus, man.
That's for later. I've never sat in front of you guys and faked watching a movie, so I'm not going to do it now.
You've never seen this?
I have never seen The Sixth Sense, and I was going to watch it this week, but I was like, nope. A couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, I vowed on this podcast that I would go to my grave without ever seeing this movie. On the one and done episode.
So you have no vote on this
And
bracket.
I said it was a none and done because by the time that I had gotten around to seeing it, someone had spoiled.
And what you just said pretty much explains my view of the film. It is a once-watch movie for me. Once you know the hook, you're done.
Yep.
A similar film that has more staying power is The Others.
Yeah.
With Nicole Kidman.
Right.
Even though you know going into it on a second viewing what the hook is,
Yep.
it's still a better film.
Yep. Well, and I tipped my hand in the previous round because I did allude to The Sixth Sense. Now, again, Fight Club does a better job of avoiding what The Sixth Sense does not, which is the rewatchability factor. Because once you know the twist, I saw that movie when it was in theaters. I really liked it. I was not one of the people who guessed the ending, so I was like, "Whoa, that's awesome!" And then I never felt the need to see it again.
Scene in the very beginning.
All right, so let's take a quick poll then. Virgin Suicides over Sixth Sense. Travis.
Virgin Suicides.
Virgin Suicides.
I'm going Virgin Suicides by
Because
default.
you can't, yeah. So we are unanimous on Virgin
A
Suicides.
6 over or 11 over 6 upset.
All right, then let's go on quickly to the next film, which is an 86% rated film. It's The Blair Witch Project that Travis recommended, directed by Eduardo Sanchez and Daniel Myrick.
This is about to get ugly.
This is the granddaddy of the found video footage craze.
Found footage, baby.
the grandmama. I like to call it the
Grandmama.
of
The tale of
found
three
footage.
film students, Heather Donahue, Joshua Leonard, and Michael C. Williams, who've traveled to a small town to collect documentary footage about the Blair Witch, a legendary local murderer. Over the course of several days, the students interview townspeople and gather clues to support the tale's veracity. But the project takes a frightening turn when the students lose their way in the woods and begin hearing horrific noises.
When this movie came out, 19-year-old Travis got scared as fuck. Probably watched it on VHS or DVD at the time. And then didn't really think about it for a long, long time. And then about maybe a couple months ago, I was like, gotta rewatch that Blair Witch. And it scared me again. I was scared. I had to snuggle with my lovely wife, Michelle, because I was scared.
Much like Travis, I saw it at the time. I saw it in the theaters, and I saw it. There may have been some herbal paranoia going
Were you scared?
around. Oh my God, yes.
Yes. It was
and
scary.
We came back to my friend DJ's. You guys know DJ.
I love DJ.
We went out to DJ's ghetto apartment in Colombia. My friend Tony from Spain was here. He saw the movie with us.
I know Tony from Spain.
We were all a little bit freaked out. I knew it wasn't real. I knew it, it was found footage. I knew the gimmick, but the movie does such a good job at making you think that,
Yeah.
or suspending disbelief. Tony, when we got back to the apartment, Tony went to the bathroom, and we all decided that we were going to go stand in the corners.
Oh,
Like
fuck,
the
dude.
like the Blair
No.
Witch forces,
Jesus
the kids
Christ,
do.
dude.
And he comes back out of the bathroom, and he fucking lost his shit, and it was so funny. And
This is the same
Todd's going
Tony.
to trash this movie in a few minutes, so just so the listeners at home know, Todd is wrong. The Blair Witch is fucking great. It is
Oh, wow.
one of the
Great.
top
Have you rewatched it
20
since you saw
horror
it in
movies.
1990?
Yes,
I have.
of all time.
I know you
It is. I
Okay.
know. Don't at me about it being not the first found footage, but it's
All right.
a damn good
Nostalgia.
All right, Todd, any statements about Blair Witch?
Yeah, it's nigh unwatchable.
Okay.
I saw it initially. Joey.
Fair enough.
I didn't like it, but Joey sung its praises a couple years ago, and I didn't remember enough about it, so I was like, let me give it another chance. The sound that you mentioned from the description that's supposed to be the hallmark, you can hardly hear shit. It's just like, Heather Donahue going,
like
"Oh
crashing
God, did you
trees.
hear that?" No, I didn't
It's
hear shit. I'm
crashing
not scared
trees.
at all. The thing's shaking around. It's just millennials bitching at each other. It is nigh unwatchable.
They're not
They're not
millennials. They're Gen
millennials,
Xers.
Todd.
Gen Xers,
The
sorry.
millennials were barely
All right.
born.
Okay, whatever.
Okay,
Gen
all right.
Xers, whatever.
I'll save my
Sounds
opin-
like you're wrong.
All right, come on.
Oh, because
all right,
I
so
got
I'm
the
going to save
generation.
my opinion until the later round, if it makes it through. It's going up against an 82% rated film. It's the number 10 seed. It's called Magnolia, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson.
Now this one's almost unwatchable.
On a random,
disagree with that,
I
too.
agree with you.
I think that it is convoluted
here we
and
go.
it loses its track.
All right, here we go. On one random day in the San Fernando Valley, a dying father, a young wife, a male caretaker, a famous lost son, a police officer in love, a boy genius, an ex-boy genius, a game show host, and an estranged daughter will each become part of a dazzling multiplicity of plots. But one story.
The only good part is the frogs.
It's the worst part of the movie.
That's my favorite part.
I'm going to vote Blair Witch because I do think that it's...
Way to bury the lead.
But...
Okay, let's keep
but
going.
The Magnolia is not a great movie. It's a very good one. What's his name? P.T. Anderson.
Anderson.
Has better films, but I like this one a lot. I like a lot of things about it. It is a little bit convoluted. It is a little bit of a struggle to pull it all together.
Yeah.
One positive about this movie, this is the only movie in existence that I can watch Tom Cruise in and not think, oh, well, there's Tom Cruise. Like, this is the only movie for me in which he acts.
So let's see what we've got going on in the room then. You're voting
Blair Witch.
Blair Witch. Todd?
Magnolia. I like Magnolia. I don't
Okay.
think it's perfect. but-
Travis?
Fuck Magnolia.
Blair
Witch all the way.
I'm going to say Blair Witch just to bury Magnolia. I fucking hate that
okay.
movie.
P.T. Anderson was like 30 years old when this came out. It's not a perfect movie. He was obviously like a huge fan of Robert Altman. This was like his version of Nashville or something like that.
Oh, you wish.
Where you're trying to do the multi.
He wishes.
So I mean, it's not perfect, but I like it. I rewatched it within the last couple years.
I
Liked it again,
went
so-
head to head with friends at the time, bitching each other
you,
out
you
over the internet.
compared Magnolia to the TV show Friends?
No. My friends and I remember emailing them because that's what we did back in '99. That I was like, "You're fucking crazy. You're stupid. This movie sucks." They're like, "No, it's great, man." And it's like,
There Will Be Blood is one of the great movies of the.
all right, here we go.
21st
Here we go.
century.
Here we go. Bottom of the bracket, and we are going to look at Sweet and Lowdown with a 77%, directed by Woody Allen, recommended by Joey. Mm-hmm. I watched it.
Starring Sean Penn. I did not watch it.
I just watched it today.
Okay.
It was this morning before I had to go get my car
very
done.
differing
Here we go.
perspectives.
Emmett Ray isn't an easy guy to be around. Among other things, he's inconsiderate and egomaniacal. He also happens to be a jazz guitarist with undeniable talent, and despite his many faults, he ends up winning the heart of Hattie, played by Samantha Morton, a kind, young, mute woman. Hattie's seemingly endless patience with Emmett is tested, however, when his incessant irresponsibility and infidelity leading their relationship to its breaking point. Also starring Uma Thurman.
Okay.
I like this movie.
I
I
liked
thought
it
it was
pretty
cool.
well.
I like the faux documentary aspect of
Yeah.
it. I like the little vignette interviews, even though Woody Allen's in it.
Yeah, that's
It,
the one flaw.
It plays like a Ken Burns kind of thing. I thought it was kind of cool.
Yep.
Joey, this is your recommendation. What do you have to say about it?
Well, I watched this movie somewhere around 1999,
Yeah.
and at the time I was obsessed with Django Reinhardt,
Yeah.
which the character, Sean Penn's character, his name's Emmett Ray, is that right?
He's the second best guitarist in the world.
is also obsessed with Django Reinhardt.
Only to
So
Django Reinhardt. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons that I kind of fell in love with this movie. Woody Allen is a bona fide creeper.
Yeah, that's one
So
big
that's
downfall.
problematic. But I mean, honestly, I can separate the art from the artist,
True.
especially in this case.
It's charming.
It's a pretty damn good movie. It's not a perfect movie.
All
It's borderline great. Sean Penn is really good. Got the Oscar nomination, I believe. For,
Yeah, he did. He got a nom for this, which I'd never heard of this movie until you brought it up.
I've still never heard of it.
It's unfortunate. I think that it is paired up against a strong 2 seed.
So here we
but
go.
this
The
one's got
number
legs,
2
man.
seed, 94%, directed by Spike Jonze.
And written by Charlie Kaufman.
Charlie Kaufman.
And so we've got a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, starring John Cusack, Cameron Diaz, Kathleen Keener, and, of course, John Malkovich. Malkovich.
So Travis obviously has strong feelings since he took over. In this quirky cult favorite comedy, unemployed New York City puppeteer Craig Schwartz, played by John Cusack, reluctantly takes a temp job as a filing clerk for the eccentric Dr. Lester, played by Orson Bean. While at work, Craig discovers a portal that leads into the mind of renowned actor John Malkovich.
John Horatio Malkovich.
When he lets his attractive co-worker Maxine, Catherine Keener, it's Catherine, not Kathleen, by the way.
Is it?
In on the secret, they begin both an unusual business scheme and an odd relationship that involve Craig's restless wife, Lot.
So I thought it was really
Played
funny
by
that they
Cameron
made Cameron Diaz ugly and
yeah.
Kathleen Keener the hottie.
Catherine.
I really think it's Kathleen.
So
I think Kathleen's pretty hot too, though.
Yeah,
I think
right?
she's
Kathleen
adorable.
Kathleen's really hot, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's save this for the second bracket because I think that I know where everyone's going. Joey,
Wow.
If I'm voting with my heart, I'm voting for The Sweet and the Lowdown.
all right.
If I'm voting with my head, I'm voting for Being John Malkovich.
Because it's a better movie.
Sweet and Low Down was fine. Woody Allen, wasn't in it too much. I hate him, loathe him, not just because of his creeper status, but I don't like Annie Hall. Anything in which he's acting,
care for his.
I don't like that.
I agree.
Oh, I'm the blah blah blah.
His
It
aloofness.
sucks. It's not funny.
Yes.
All right.
But anyway, I liked it. But Being John Malkovich, so I saw that within the last couple of years. Great movie. So
Travis,
Oh, I already said.
Malkovich.
Yeah.
Malkovich. All right, so we got John Malkovich going into the next one. All right.
Sweet and Lowdown deserved a higher seed.
All right, here's where we start to pick up steam. Thank you, listener, for enduring all of this. We've got Existence versus Ghost Dog.
ooh, that's gonna be tough. That's a tough one.
We've already talked deeply about the two films, unless you've got something new to contribute. Anyone? Otherwise, we're going to go straight to the voting.
I'm going Ghost Dog.
I'm gonna go with Existence.
I'm going with Ghost Dog too. For me, Existence, again, I don't hate the movie. I liked it, but it's a little bit too much of a Rubik's Cube for me. And Ghost Dog is a singular, very, very 90s document.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to go Ghost Dog.
So
I have no
Ghost Dog-
problem with that. It
Yeah,
was a close call.
they're both good.
It progresses.
Yep.
Next
up, we got Office Space versus Galaxy Quest. Now we get into it. I was going to say in the first round, but for the interest of time, I wanted to save this comment. Mike Judge has the uncanny ability to create things that seem innocuous at the time, but 10 years later, he has created a nugget of wisdom for us to say, holy fuck, this guy gets
How many
it.
people quote?
R.E.
This is one of those.
Idiocracy.
Yeah.
This is one of these quotable movies, like The Big Lebowski or Fill in the Blank. You know, people know quotes.
Not
from this
only
movie.
is
It's funny you said The Big Lebowski first.
Yeah.
I know.
But not only are the films quotable, but they're prescient. I mean, despite the fact that half the technology in Office Space is outdated and
Completely
irrelevant,
obsolete.
you don't change how people interact with each other. You don't change how corporations fuck people over.
Exactly.
And this movie continues to speak to that in a very entertaining kind of way.
Then on the other hand, we have Galaxy Quest, which is looking to the future and kind of a meta examination of representations of space and
All right.
whatnot. I still got to go with Office Space.
I'll abstain since I didn't see Galaxy Quest, but
Office Space for
I
me.
think it's going to go. I think it's going to go the way that I.
I'm 100% saying Office Space as well.
Galaxy Quest is a funny movie. It's a good
It's
parody. But Office Space, I think, is kind of an important document of its time.
Yeah.
Honestly.
For
All right.
sure.
Okay. You've got Fight Club versus Virgin Suicides.
Fight Club.
Fight Club here for me. One thing I was going to say earlier, the best needle drop in a movie of the whole decade.
Where
the
is my
90s,
mind?
Where is my
Fuck
mind?
yes, dude.
And when the building blows up and then
I will say this also tagging on that. Let's bookend that the beginning of the film. You have at the time called the Dust Brothers, the Chemical Brothers, playing the track to that crazy intro credit going through the guy's brain cavity, through his nostril, to the gun. What the fuck?
It's probably his best movie.
Fincher's best movie.
We'll save that for another day.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna say Fight Club. You're saying Fight Club?
Yeah.
Even though I went against it in the first round, I would pick it in this particular matchup.
Travis?
Yeah,
Fight
obviously,
Club?
Fight Club.
So we're at Fight Club. All right. Moving on to the next set. We've got the Blair Witch versus John Malkovich.
Blood
John Malkovich.
Which versus
Bloodbath.
the Vitch?
Being John Malkovich is a better movie than the Blair Witch Project. Being what it
Same?
is.
Any
The
objections?
Blair Witch was more important to its genre than being John Malkovich.
Okay. All right. Hot take.
I
Hot
like
take.
being John Malkovich. I'm going Blair Witch.
I've already said my piece on Blair Witch. Nigh unwatchable. It's being John Malkovich in a
Malkovich.
slaughter.
And you said what, Joey?
Ironically, a
Blair
slaughter
Witch.
against
Blair
the horror.
Witch.
You're gonna
film.
make him say it twice.
I'm gonna have to say John Malkovich. This is riding the fence for me.
I got no problem with that.
because I think
They're both good.
I think that I had to separate Blair Witch from the movie versus the marketing behind it. Because for me, the marketing behind Blair Witch is better than the movie itself.
I fortunately did not learn that it was a hoax until after I watched it.
All right.
Man, have you guys seen this new documentary?
Oh, it's crazy, man. All right, now we're getting into the good shit.
Yes.
Ghost Dog versus Office Space.
Boy, this is a tough one.
This hurts.
I'm gonna go with Office Space. I really like Ghost Dog, but I think the tiebreaker for me is the cultural touchstone that Office Space is. Like, people can quote people that haven't even really seen the movie know quotes from it or know the the feel. of it. Yeah.
All right, we're heading for a collision course. What do you say,
I'm going Office Space.
Joey?
Office Space.
I'm going Office Space.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Ghost
Here we
Dog's a
go.
really good movie, but I mean,
Yeah.
you're going against a cultural
Love you, Ghost Dog.
phenomenon.
This is getting good, folks. All right. In the other bracket, we've got Fight Club versus Being John Malkovich.
I'm gonna go with Malkovich.
Same. Malkovich.
Oh.
Fight Club for me. I'm gonna cite the cultural touchstone argument, and being John Malkovich to me is almost too absurd. It's like too absurdist. It's a great movie. I love it, but I think Fight Club is a better document of its time and more important culturally.
There you go.
Fight Club.
I got to say Fight Club.
Oh, so we have a
wow.
tie.
I have a tie.
So do we have
So
to have
what
a
do we
tag
do?
team wrestling match, or
Well, before you arrived, I was told that I was the decider, but I think that we should talk this out.
There's always the
Everything Joey just
the
said
ranking.
about I disagree with the ranking, but
Which one's the higher seed again?
John Malkovich is the higher seed by a long shot.
I don't think that there's an argument to be made for either one of those being the superior film. There is not an argument to be made that Being John Malkovich is more important to our culture than Fight Club.
well, but there is an argument to be made that it is more influential cinematically. For example, I would say that I'm bad at the title of this one because Everything Always
Everywhere, All
at
at
Once
Once
would not exist without Being John Malkovich. I don't think, and the movies that followed
Everything
it in
is
that,
illuminated.
Yes.
What is the one you mentioned earlier that you thought was 1999? Joey?
Eternal Sunshine.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind would not exist.
So you're saying-
I think there's a certain absurdist aesthetic that has influenced a lot of future filmmakers. That yes, you're right, Joey. Probably more like cultural cachet, but cinematic cachet. If you want to think of like how are they going to combat against each other, I would say probably Malkovich has been more influential in that regard.
So, in 2024, does anybody have a coin in their pocket?
I do not.
Do not.
I do not either. Todd?
I don't.
Boy, I tell you.
Do I have something
Something you can flip?
that can flip? Yeah. Do we?
No, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it that way. It's too important.
Decide.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Are we going to put a hot light on each other's faces until we? You know,
We're gonna have to arm
this is gonna
us.
turn into like 12 Angry Men, but 4
Pizza-
Angry Men instead.
Or the
until-
movie Red Heat.
Feats
Okay.
of strength.
Which one of us is going to be Henry
So,
Fonda?
wait. Who voted for Fight Club? Me and Sean. Tag team wrestling match against
Obviously.
Todd and Travis.
Yeah.
Y'all,
I'm wiry,
I
man.
gotta say,
I'm wiry.
I like mine and Sean's.
I like old man strength.
Yeah, I like our odds here.
Y'all have more stature than.
We're still 25 years later. We're still dealing with toxic masculinity.
We're still talking about Fight
We're
Club.
not still dealing.
We're not talking
with
about
trying to
being
be
John Malkovich.
Yeah.
Except in
That's
cinema.
a good point.
Except
Joey.
again in
We're
cinema.
still railing
Yeah.
against. We're still railing.
Shit.
We're still railing against
Joey
corporate.
might have it with Fight
yeah.
Club.
Yeah, it's the corporate
God
structure
damn,
bringing
you
down
won
the
me
man.
over.
Yes.
Okay,
So Fight Club moves on. Thank you, Travis.
that's a phone. No,
Well, this is a hell of a final, and if you had asked me
This
at
is the final.
the beginning of the episode who the head-to-head would be, these two would have been in the conversation. Fight Club versus Office Space.
Ooh.
They're very similar themes.
Yeah.
Just like
Surprisingly, yeah.
being completely frustrated and fed up with the corporate world
Yeah.
and Western civilization and
It's such a both
flair.
are both are beautiful beautiful pictures of the time of 1999 of
and yet still having prescience now.
our corporate overlords and those of us who are trying to rail against it and try to undermine authority. Both movies speak to
These
those
end up
points.
being universal themes, though, because you could go back to Melville
Sure.
with,
Moby Dick.
Bartleby the Scrivener. Yeah,
The Scribbler.
I would
said the
prefer-
Scribbler.
I would prefer not to. Bartleby said
so
to his corporate master.
Speaking to the clown in myself, I have to go with the comedy of the two, and I'm going Office Space.
I'm going Fight Club here. I'm not going to be mad if Office Space wins this. I love Office Space. If we had to sit down and watch one of them right now, I'd want to watch Office Space.
Yeah.
And there we go.
But I do think that Fight Club is the better film.
I disagree. I think that we're talking about cultural touchstones, which both of these are.
Oh, yeah.
But quotability, probably Office Space. And
The first
also-
rule of Office Space is
Yeah.
nobody talks about Office Space.
Exactly. I also think anyone who's ever worked in that corporate environment knows how accurate it is, despite the fact that it's being satirical. Having worked in those offices for many years before I went into teaching, the double speak, the memos that don't mean anything that you're supposed to read, and if you didn't read it, even though it didn't mean anything to you, you're still supposed to, I see you didn't put a TPS report on there.
You'll have
which,
to forgive me if I get the dollar amount wrong, but what would you do with $2 million?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Okay, so first...
Two chicks at the same time.
time. I figure that's what it would
Dude.
take for two girls to double up on a dude like me. So I'm going to go Office Space. I think that's our fucking 1999 winner.
Awesome. I think, yeah. Good.
Shout out to Mike Judge.
Wow.
Bit
Now,
of a surprise. It came from what seed? The
Office Space was the number 12 seed.
Ooh,
Toppling number 5,
1985.
like you said. There's
Well,
some
so-
bracketology.
So I think it's worth knowing, going through the four of us, would any of us have picked on our own personal brackets Office Space as the winner?
I would have put it in the top 4.
I don't think so. I would have put John Malkovich probably as the first one.
I would have had Fight Club probably as the probable winner. I would have had Office Space in the final 4 definitely.
I'm surprised Matrix didn't make it farther, but
For me,
It's just been worn
even-
out.
yeah.
It's interesting because for me, that Fight Club election one was tough because I respect and like Fight Club,
Yeah.
but election for me, I prefer. So that would Fight Club
Sometimes
wouldn't have even gotten
elections
out of the
are a
first
fight.
round.
I
Yeah.
think if election had taken the first round, then it would have been in the final 4.
Thank you for recommending this idea. This was yours.
Yeah.
I think this is a good episode. I love the brackets. They're fun. And 1999 was an exciting year for movies. And what a crazy
And one of the proofs for
winner.
me personally that it was a great year was the fact that normally when we do these things, there are way more than like 2 movies that I have to watch. And I looked at this list and I was like, oh, I've already seen most of these, and most of them fairly recent.
Multiple
There was
times.
3 that I hadn't seen. One I watched. It was Virgin Suicides. I've never seen it.
Really? Oh, okay.
The Existence.
In the movie, it's existence. I think it is supposed to be existence, but they pronounce it.
And I
existence
watched
in the
that
movie.
one, and then Sweet and Lowdown, which is also a movie from 1940 called Sweet and Lowdown. Did you know that?
Different movie.
Yeah, different movie.
Oh, one little factoid toward the end here. You guys will appreciate this, especially Todd. I just learned today, and I didn't know this. Sweet and Lowdown apparently is a very loose remake of one of my favorite films, and yours too, Fellini's La Strada.
Oh yeah, I saw that La Strada.
No
right?
shit.
I saw that too.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Interesting.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us for this episode. We've got a fun one coming up. This was at the recommendation of Chelsea. Rest in peace. Boobs.
Boob movies.
We're going to do a film about unexpected nudity in film, meaning actors or actresses who gave us some skin that was unexpected.
Kind of like William Peterson in
Showing that Peter.
And to live and die in
LA.
I was thinking more like Julie Andrews in SOB, but yes, these are the kind of
think that
movies
works
that we're
too,
going to
yeah.
go for. We're going to plumb the depths of film to find some.
Oh, there's something
plum.
about Mary has to go in.
We're
that
going to
one.
find some nudity that we did not
How
expect.
did you get the beans below the Franks?
Well, there's two in that one. The beans below the Franks, and then also when Matt Dillon has the binoculars and thinks that he's looking at.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
old lady.
Yeah, well, so we're gonna look at some naked people in the next couple of weeks, and we're
I'm
gonna come
excited
back and we're
about
gonna
it right now.
Yeah, I know you are. We're gonna have the booby count, which is one of your
right.
favorite things in films. So everybody, thank you for joining us. Please remember to love yourselves and love your family and
Tell your friends you love them.
yeah, all that stuff. Just reach out. Please do. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. We're Cinema Chop Shop everywhere except for YouTube. We're Cinema Chop Shop Podcasts, where you can watch an audio version of this podcast. And in the meantime, please remember to
Watch, shop, retrofit.
and party like it's 1999.
Yeah.
Yay!